property on application.yml or bootstrap.yml in Spring Boot. Here is your same structured beginner-friendly content for application.yml versus bootstrap.yml in Spring Boot. Configuration properties explained. Introduction. In a Spring Boot application, configuration is usually defined in application.properties, application.yml. However, in some projects, especially those using Spring Cloud, bootstrap.yml. This creates confusion. What is the difference? When should we use application.yml? When should we use bootstrap.yml? Why does Spring sometimes ignore one file? Understanding these files is important for configuration management, microservices setup, external configuration systems, environment-based configuration. What is application.yml? Application.yml is the main configuration file used in Spring Boot. Example server. Port 8080. Spring data source URL JDBC MySQL localhost 3306 MyDB. Username root, password secret. Application.yml equals main configuration file for your application. What is bootstrap.yml? Bootstrap.yml is an early-stage configuration file used during application startup. It is mainly used when working with Spring Cloud Config Server, external configuration sources, distributed systems. Example, Spring Application. Name, My Service. Cloud Config URI. http://8088. Simple meaning. Bootstrap.yml equals configuration used before application.yml during startup. Key difference between application.yml and bootstrap.yml. Load order. Bootstrap.yml means loaded first. Application.yml means loaded later. Purpose file purpose. Application.yml, general application configuration. Bootstrap.yml, early configuration. External config, cloud setup. Example concept. Bootstrap means initialize environment, application means configure application. Why bootstrap.yml exists. In microservices or cloud environments, configuration may come from external config server, centralized configuration system, remote properties. Spring needs to connect to that config source before loading application.yml. So, bootstrap.yml is used. Example concept. Need config server means must connect early, means use bootstrap.yml. When to use application.yml. Use application.yml for database, configuration, server settings, login configuration, business application properties, general settings. Example concept. Normal app settings means application.yml. When to use bootstrap.yml. Use bootstrap.yml for Spring Cloud Config Setup, application name for config server, external configuration loading, secure config initialization. Example concept. External config setup means bootstrap.yml. Example with Spring Cloud Config bootstrap.yml Spring. Application name user service cloud config URI http://localhost 8088 application.yml server port 8081 flow load bootstrap.yml dash connect to config server fetch external config load application.yml Spring Boot 2.4 plus. From newer versions of Spring Boot, bootstrap.yml is not enabled by default. Instead, Spring introduced a new approach using spring.config.import. Example spring.config.import. Optional config server https://localhost 8888. Example concept. Modern Spring means Bootstrap replaced by config import property priority. Spring Boot loads properties in a specific order. Priority order, command line, environment, bootstrap.yml, application.yml, default. Higher priority overrides lower priority. Can properties be defined in both? Yes, but values in bootstrap.yml are loaded earlier. Later files can override earlier ones. Example, bootstrap.yml server port 8080, application.yml server port 9090. Result, final port equals 9090. Real-world scenario microservices setup. You have multiple services, centralized config server. Each service needs to identify itself, fetch config from server bootstrap.yml, Spring application, name, order service, cloud, config, URI, http:/config server 8888, application.yml server, port 8082. Example concept. Bootstrap means connect config server application means run service. Common mistakes: putting ddconfig in bootstrap.yml. This may not behave as expected. Expecting bootstrap.yml to work automatically. In newer Spring Boot versions, it may not load unless configured. Using both without understanding priority. This can lead to confusion. Wrong indentation in YAML. YAML is sensitive to indentation. Example concept. Wrong YAML means config not loaded, application.yml versus application.properties. Both are equivalent. Application.properties, server.port equals 8080, application.yml, server.port 8080. Example concept. Same config means different format. Advantages of using YAML. Advantages include cleaner structure, easier grouping, better readability for complex configs. Example concept. YAML means structured configuration. Limitations. Challenges include indentation errors harder for beginners, mixing bootstrap and application configs incorrectly. Example concept. Incorrect structure means config issues. Best practices. Use application.yml for most configurations. Use bootstrap.yml only when needed. Spring Cloud config external configuration. Prefer new approach for modern Spring Boot. Spring.config.import. Keep configurations organized. Example concept. Right file means correct configuration behavior. Concepts learned. Check. Difference between application.yml and bootstrap.yml. Configuration loading order. When to use each file. Spring Cloud configuration basics. Modern Spring Boot configuration approach. Simple definition. Application.yml. Main configuration file for Spring Boot applications. Bootstrap.yml. Early configuration file. Used to load external or cloud-based configuration before the application starts. Final summary. In Spring Boot, application.yml is used for general application configuration. Bootstrap.yml is used for early-stage configuration, mainly in Spring Cloud setups. Bootstrap.yml loads before application.yml, allowing the application to connect to external configuration sources. In modern Spring Boot versions, bootstrap.yml is often replaced with spring.config.import. Understanding the difference is essential for working with microservices, cloud configuration, and scalable Spring Boot applications.